Okay, can you guys see our screen? Okay, so our group created a co-op called the Sustainable Palm Oil Cooperative, also known as SPOC. So the context for our presentation is that we represent the Ministry of Agriculture and the hope to benefit small farmers. In West Kalimantan today, there are several devastating issues contributing to the devastation of the economy, environment, and labor rights. Currently, Indonesia is the top exporter and producer of palm oil, and there are many large corporations in several regions that contribute to human rights violations and destruction to the environment, such as deforestation and loss of biodiversity. However, 40% of the market are comprised by smallholders.
So our project proposal is based around the idea of using a co-op structure to leverage the power of smallholders. This will hopefully reduce the control of large corporations over the industry, leading to safer local conditions and more sustainable practices. SPOC will be a pilot co-op program designed to help small farmers. It will increase the regulation of environmental, laboral, and economic problems by fostering communication, cooperation, and interconnection between the government, RSPO, and agricultural communities. We want this to be a bottom-up, not top-down approach, so the project will be community-based and regulated by an oversight board. Throughout the process, the suggestions of the community will come first. NGOs such as the RSPO will partner with SPOC to educate members of the co-op about sustainable farming practices, and over time, the project will incorporate more opportunities for economic growth. It will have 3 phases.
Creating this co-op with the ultimate goal being the domestication of the value chain is a viable, comprehensive solution to issues surrounding palm oil in Indonesia. Firstly, we will teach farmers, a large portion of the people harvesting palm nuts, sustainable farming practices. It will also bolster the economy in the region and cut back on abuses of humanitarian rights and labor abuses from large corporations. Additionally, the long-term goal of insourcing will promote sustainable development in the country. Eco-friendly industrialization will progress the quality of life while simultaneously protecting the environment and increasing local jobs. The policy is a long-term investment that will benefit the environment and the economy of the region. We concluded that it is imperative to look well beyond just a year, since many government plans are short-term. They pull out and leave the community stranded. This is a very innovative policy because the traditional approaches of palm oil co-ops outsource raw materials after harvesting. Instead, our plan will insource the steps in the supply chain, creating a diverse economy, as well as a focus on protecting the environment instead of exploiting it.
Phase 1 will be the creation phase, and it will last 1 year, which is the direct term indicated in the proposal. So first, the government needs to promote the co-op to the community. This will include talking to community members about the benefits of joining the cooperative, including economic benefits and social benefits. Once the community is on board, the Ministry of Agriculture will begin recruiting leadership for the Oversight Board, which will be evaluating the project throughout all phases. In phase 1, we will begin implementing social benefits and laying the foundation for using palm tree byproducts. And finally, the Oversight Board and Ministry of Agriculture will coordinate the sales of cooperative produce. First, there are many specific environmental benefits associated with SPOC. The government will work to connect the community with RSPO, which will then teach sustainable farming practices to the smallholders. They will also work with the Oversight Board to hold yearly environmental checkups on the community. RSPO will benefit from this partnership because the co-op can act as an on-the-ground prototype of what sustainable palm oil farming could look like. The foundations for future use of byproducts will also be put in place during phase 1. For example, palm shells can be used to create cement and treat contaminated drinking water. During phase 1, research will be conducted to find ways to include these emerging technologies in the community. The government will work as a liaison here. The government will also sponsor education on environmental issues for the community, such as educating about deforestation, biodiversity, wildfires, and wildlife abuse in order to promote a more sustainable lifestyle.
Another aspect of phase one is labor. The most important aspect of this will be the oversight committee, which will be a rotating board made up of community members and members of NGOs to allow expert voices to give input on efficiency, but also allow for the locals to have direct input and influence. Once again, mentioning our bottom-up approach. It will create its own budget to give it a bottom-up approach once again. Additionally, it will be a liaison between the community and the government to focus on minimizing exploitation of the farmers, the environment, and the economy. The committee will convene 4 times a year to evaluate local needs and issues from the co-op. It will make sure that the co-op is meeting necessary standards by decreasing the amount of land deforested, abiding by regulations to limit labor abuse, such as giving farmers a share of the profit, making sure the economy is successfully being stimulated, and is making efforts to domesticate the value chain. Additionally, it will have health and safety aspects to reduce the exploitation of laborers, negative health impacts, and child labor.
So for the economic aspect of our phase one, one of the main focuses of the cooperative is to promote the community, and we plan on accomplishing this by putting back portions of the profit into the community by sponsoring programs like educational and health programs. This policy will promote education sponsored by the Administration of Agriculture to teach more sustainable and efficient agriculture approaches in the region, as well as providing general knowledge of the importance of ecology and biodiversity. The goal of this educational effort is to promote the awareness of the importance of protecting the environment around them and that they live and use. A healthy, educated community allows greater prosperity for the local economy. Additionally, we plan on laying the foundations of other economic initiatives in the community, such as the alternative palm shell use, further discussed in Plan 2.
All right, so the next phase is the growth phase. Yes, and the first aspect of that will be expansion. This entire portion of the phase is meant to further plans that we created in phase one. Initially, we will bolster social initiatives. For example, we will continue to support health and education as our profits grow and hopefully expand those infrastructures domestically. Then the oversight committees will shift to be more community-led. For example, the members of the board will be elected. Because at this point, the NGOs were already able to give a lot of their advice and knowledge to the community members so they can now operate on their own. This is also furthering our bottom-up approach. And then lastly, we will further partnerships with NGOs to expand the success of our business.
Finally, the last part of phase 2 is the focus on the domestication of the value chain, which is the ultimate goal of starting this cooperative plan. Here, our goal is to promote the steps of the palm oil process to be in country instead of out of country. The next steps we would like to incorporate in the region would be things such as threshing and sterilization of the palm seeds and bring that into local areas. This would diversify job opportunities by allowing people to partake in other aspects of the palm oil industry, which is clearly a key role in Indonesia. Instead of simply just trying to expand their farmland to produce more palm nuts, which would help contribute to, which contributes, of course, to deforestation and the loss of biodiversity. So in this phase of the plan, we would also develop and begin the production of using the palm shells as an aggregate in cement. This repurposes an otherwise unused residue from the palm oil industry and provides an alternative to burning the shells as biofuel, which is a common practice and also contributes a lot to carbon dioxide, which of course leads to global warming. Eventually, once up and running in this part of the phase, it will bring in more new and diverse jobs. And an additional bonus of using the shells as aggregate in cement is that the cement can then be used for infrastructure developments in the community, such as building houses, medical facilities, and schools. So this process would directly give back to the community.
Our final phase is phase 3, which is expansion. And while evaluation of the project will be ongoing throughout all phases, phase 3 is a chance for the national government to evaluate the project and determine whether the co-op could be used as a model for similar initiatives in other Indonesian regions, with, of course, modifications according to regional variations. Hopefully, SPOC will be a sustainable and prosperous model for all regions of Indonesia in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, great work. Team Dinwiddie 300. That was right at 10 minutes, so great job. And now I will open up the 5 minutes for questions that any of our judges may have about your presentation.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what you envision in terms of scale here? So is this one cooperative? Is this multiple cooperatives? And how many farmers are kind of involved in this, at least in the first year?
In the first year, our main focus is on just a pilot one. So we're doing a pilot cooperative in one region, mainly focusing on like a local area. It will start small just to see how it works. And the goal is to adapt and change it over time and see what else. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I think there won't be too many farmers, once again, because this is a very local and pilot initiative. I think it'll just be the farmers that are already existing and that are willing to contribute to the co-op.
But it's important because, of course, you have to learn to adapt policy over time to fit to different regions. So that's why we have a small plan, but we're planning on the future and expanding it as we learn and adapt and hear from members of the community.
Can you talk a little bit about the financial budgeting piece with this, the expectation of, what you anticipate it costing for this pilot program and how you anticipate, future costs?
So we were not expecting the pilot initiative to cost too much money. We didn't have an actual number because we left the budget up to the oversight committee in phase 1. However, we were thinking that producing and the price of the palm oil wouldn't cost too much for several reasons. One, because the corporations would have incentives to purchase them because they may want to purchase ethically produced goods, which will enhance their reputation. Additionally, because this is a co-op, we'll be producing surpluses of palm oil, which will be cheaper to distribute. And even though because it is a co-op, our price will be a little bit higher, the surplus will lower it a little bit. So it's not too much money in the beginning stages. It probably will be more expensive later on as we expand it to other regions. However, we were planning on minimizing this cost through the palm nut shells and the aggregating of the cement.
So with all honesty, we don't have an exact budget for the first year. We thought that would be more appropriate to be a discussion between the community, which is more knowledgeable about how palm oil production happens in actuality, and the government. So like Tori said, making modifications based off of all of those aspects.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much for your presentation. I think domesticating the value chain makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering how you're thinking about the government involvement and role. What do you think are some of the benefits versus the drawbacks of this being coordinated by the government?
Do you want to talk about it? I'm sorry.
Sure, just let me think for a second. So in the first few phases, clearly there's going to be a lot more government involvement than in the final phases, where it sort of becomes a more decentralized approach with the national government stepping in again at the end. I think with anything else, I mean, there are risks and there are drawbacks to having that much government invention. But when we were doing research, we saw that Indonesia actually had cooperatives in the past and had tried this model, and it had been successful in past decades. But then there was sort of a period of economic and political strife, and it kind of fell apart. So we thought that looking back on the history of it, it seems like when the government was taking a strong approach and actually implementing and coordinating these programs, it was successful in the past. So we think with this model, it would be best to keep government involvement, but like we were talking about, also bringing the community into the decisions. There's
Like-
a good balance between the government and the community when
Right.
making decisions.
Government guidelines and then strong communication between the government and the community.
Okay, I believe that's a good stopping point. We're just about at the end of that 5-minute questioning period. Thank you all, Dinwiddie 300, so much for your presentation and great work.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.